Well, friends, we have a slight issue. My laptop that contains, I just spit for Shirley. My laptop that contains all of our tuning goodies happens to be missing. So it contains Evo Scan, it contains ECU flash, all the stuff for the M3, every other map in the world that I've ever had for any car is on that laptop, and I can't seem to find it. I swear it was in the M3. I don't know why I thought it was the M3, but it was not in the M3. So I'm gonna head to the shop right now and look all morning for it because I need to find this freaking laptop. But anyways, good morning. Welcome back to the channel. And today, we should be able to make a lot of progress on the Evo 8. I need the laptop for two reasons. Number one, of course, is to get a base map loaded up on the car. And number two is I need to disable that immobilizer so we can actually get the car to crank. If I can't find the laptop, I'm gonna have to buy a new one and hopefully re-download every single thing that I have on that laptop, which none of it's backed up, and it's gonna be a mess. So hopefully we can find it. I found my laptop. Guess where it was? Right where it was supposed to be. Imagine that. All right, let's run through. I'm gonna pull the map on the car. So I already did that. How you do it is go ahead, insert said key into ignition. You're gonna hit this button right here. Read from ECU's flash memory. It'll pull up all this info and data. So we're gonna go to ECU, however you say that word, 0 FAA bits. We're gonna click and select that check mark. Immobilizer is right here. 1 is enable, 0 is disable. So it's currently a 1. How you change it to 0, you click this button here. 0. Okay. Check that. Ignition's on. Write that to the ECU. As soon as that is done writing, click OK. Turn off ignition. Provided the immobilizer was the reason this car would not crank, it should crank now. Don't you love cars? Don't you freaking love cars? Okay, what is your problem now, sir? It does crank if I just jump the starter, so I know the starter's fine. Let me pull out the Autel and do some scanning. A couple minutes of diagnosing later, I found out a black and a yellow wire, the main wire from the ignition switch, was slightly pulled out. And now, imagine this. She cranks. That issue is resolved. I don't think the immobilizer was causing it not to crank. As far as I'm aware, the immobilizer on this car will cause it to not start. But as far as not cranking, I don't think the immobilizer had anything to do with that. But that would have been an issue later on. So I'm glad that for now it's just disabled. All right, we need to build some oil pressure. So we need oil. We also need an oil cooler. Let's get to work building our new inner or oil cooler setup. I have the stock one. I was gonna put a stock one on the car, but it's crusty. It got a lot of bent fins on it. It ain't nice. So I picked up a whole new kit. Let's get her built. Back in the day, STM used to make a oil cooler kit that was a very reasonable price. Other kits on the market are like 400 bucks-ish, and I'm a kind of a cheap ass. So I went ahead and pieced together something very similar to the old school STM kit. This here is a, what was it, a B&M Performance oil cooler core itself. The hose, there's 8 different fittings you're gonna need, and then thankfully STM still offers their bracket that fits, that mounts this oil cooler right to the frame rail of the car. If you guys wanna do this yourself, it's about I think it's like $230 for every piece sitting right here, and it's everything you need to get a brand new oil cooler on your Evo 8 or 9 or 7. I'll link all this down below. For starters, these fittings right here, those guys are gonna thread into the oil cooler. They do need some thread sealant. I'm gonna be using this high temp Permatex liquid thread sealant. I think they need thread sealant at least. I don't know why they wouldn't. There's not an AN fitting. I always try to start right on the very first thread so it can kind of, as you thread it in, it'll spread itself. If we don't have any other issues, We can get the oil cooler on, make sure she builds oil pressure. I'll need to get the intake manifold on with a throttle body and whatnot. And we just need this base map. A good old base map set for our map sensor and our injector size and whatnot. And this thing, provided it builds ample oil pressure, we'll be able to knock out a first start today. There's a whole lot of fluids that we need to get done first. Okay, those guys don't need to go crazy tight. Of course, you don't want to strip out the threads or rip the fitting off the oil cooler. But you want it tight enough so she don't leak. All right, let's call that a day. So that's all finished up. Let's go ahead and get the oil cooler mounted onto the bracket. Now, which way does that mount? With the tab up top, those guys are facing down. So it goes Allen bolt, washer, through the cooler, another flat washer, bracket, lock washer, nut. I know, a lot of washers going on. Got these 3 jimmies tightened up. Alrighty, this guy's ready to go in the car. With the STM bracket, they include a bolt with a lock washer. Unfortunately, it ain't gonna work for this build. It's silver and it's a 13mm head. No bueno. OEM bolts only. So this guy is gonna mount right onto the frame rail. Cooler is on. Let's run some lines. For starters, we need to get these fittings onto the oil filter housing. This is a ORB adapter. So one goes right there and one goes right here. Both of these are going to get a 90-degree AN. So I'm going to put the fittings on first so that we can get the proper length of hose. So that'll go like that. I'm not the biggest fan of this 90 to a 90. So I'm going to go ahead and swap this for a straight. So that can run just like that. Much better. So this far end is going to connect right here. Now, quite frankly, I don't think it matters, but that's how I'm going to do it. Okay, let's mark that. In my opinion, easiest way to cut with the cutoff wheel, if you tape it like we have here, I use it to mark it and to tape it. It will prevent it from fraying out on you. Nice clean cut. This is for a PTFE. This ain't gonna work. Dang. While it's not ideal, in my opinion, the 90 is gonna have to do the trick. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm just picky. First line is built. Don't forget to blow it out. Make it nice and clean. Both of the cooler lines are in place. Now, instead of zip tying the lines together, which is what I would usually do, and I feel like most people would, they make a AN line clamp, which is super nice. The full cooler setup is done. fittings out of the oil filter housing. There's the lines with the AN clamps into the cooler itself, and that is where she mounts. Nice, clean, simple, effective. Well, let's start tossing in some fluids. I'm gonna start with engine oil and make sure this little sucker will build some oil pressure. This thing is gonna be getting some 2050 VR1 from Valvoline. Get some engine oil in, get our oil pressure gauge on, crank it over, make sure she builds pressure, and make sure I don't have any obvious leaks right off the bat. Might be a good idea to go ahead and install the dipstick tube. Now it does bolt to the intake manifold itself, which of course I don't have installed yet. Just so this thing can crank easier, it's a good idea to pull out the spark plugs. So it relieves the compression from the cylinders. Our AEM oil pressure gauge isn't going to be here for a couple days. So for now, the Harbor Freight Special is going on. Just a good old simple manual gauge, no need for wiring or anything like that. Just to confirm we got pressure. And to plug off the hole for the center location. Otherwise we'll be spraying oil. Okay, well, what do you say? Let's go ahead, give her a few cranks, a few revolutions, and make sure everything sounds healthy for starters. The first crank. Oh man. What was this, like 50 years in the making? Okay, battery's a little low. No leaks yet. But then again, no oil pressure yet. I did pack the pump, so it should build pretty quick. There we go. Right as our battery starts dying, we're starting to get oil pressure. No leaks yet. Leaks are the worst. Toss on a jump pack. Now let's crank. Couple cranks in. What is that? 25 PSI already? Oof. Well, nothing's clinking. That's a good sign. Nothing's leaking. That's a really good sign. Let's do it again. .40 PSI. I love it. All right, here's the deal. I've been debating this and I should have just dropped it off a while ago. I want to have this flange surfaced to make sure it's perfectly flat, because when I put the throttle body on, there's a little bit of wiggle. I'm confident it ain't a brand new throttle body, and it sounds more likely that it is our flange that I personally welded on. So I'm gonna go ahead and strip this thing back down, get that surfaced, get that machine, make sure it's completely and perfectly flat, and then we can get this assembly on the car. I'd rather take care of this now and not when we're trying to diagnose why I have a massive vacuum leak. So while we wait for the intake manifold to come back from the machine shop, getting that flange resurfaced, let's go ahead and finish up fluids. I want to get the clutch bled, the brakes bled, Transmission, gear oil, I'm gonna be running the Redline Cocktail. I don't have that here, but we can go ahead and do the T-case, rear diff, power steering, coolant, I'm not gonna worry about yet just because I would rather get a first start with no coolant or any sort of water in it and move on from there. That's gonna take a while. Let's start with the T-case. On the T-case, this guy here is the drain. This here is the fill. The T-case, if I'm not mistaken, takes 0.6 liters, and it's never really all that fun to fill. I think I'm gonna try something else. Instead of filling the T-case with the usual method, I'm gonna fill it from the top. I've never done this. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do this, but I don't know why it wouldn't work. So let's give it a shot. Using that hand pump, it's a pain. Straight pain in the butt. Now right down here is the vent plate. If I pop those 4 bolts off, I don't know why I couldn't fill it through there. Now the oil you want to run is this SAE 90 Mitsubishi LSD gear oil. Okay, it does look like it's gonna work. It may take a while to drain through the vent hole. This may not be the best option in the world, but I'm already doing it, so I'm gonna continue on. We're finally done with the T-case fill. It's definitely a lot cleaner that way. It's just more time consuming. So I guess it depends on the build. I'm gonna do power steering real quick. I've had this Diaqueen OEM Mitsubishi PSF power steering fluid laying around for a minute now. That's what this car is gonna receive. Right into our beautiful JDC titanium reservoir. Let's hope we don't spill. And let's hope we don't have any leaks either. So even though the T-case takes 0.6 liter, what I like to do is take a whole quart, which is 0.946 liters, put the whole thing in there, and then while the car's up on the lift, later on down the road when we get the first start and get everything situated there, I'm gonna put this thing in gear, I'm gonna rotate the drivetrain, let it spin for a while, and then let it cool down, let it settle, pull out that fill plug, and let it drain to the proper level. Same concept with the rear diff as well. Rear diff does take the same gear oil as the T-case. And unfortunately, with the diff in the car, there is no way to just dump it in, which is not a big deal. We can just go ahead and use our pump, this little Harbor Freight pump. Drain is right here, fill is up there, and like I said, same concept as the T-case. Just fill her up. I'm gonna try to cram some extra in there, and then we could pull the fill plug later on and let it drain to the proper height and level. While this thing is up in the air, let's go ahead and knock out our exhaust gaskets. So we pull the current ones off. I'm not the biggest fan of this style. These gaskets like this, not the biggest fan. I am, however, a very big fan of these super thick Grimspeed gaskets. They are reusable. You can use them, I don't know, probably 10, 15, 20, maybe a million times. They're spendy. I think they're 30 bucks a piece, but they're definitely nice. They seal every freaking time. Never had a problem. Can't be having fingerprints on our exhaust, especially for the first start. Just a quick old wipe down with some alcohol should take care of it. Alrighty, our final fluid is the hydraulic systems, clutch and brakes. I picked up a new power bleeder, so this should hopefully go quite smoothly. I'm not saying it's gonna be quick, because all the lines were off the car, all the way front to rear. Every single line was off this thing, so it might take a minute. Let's hope I don't have any leaks. Brake fluid loves to eat up fresh paint and whatnot. Yeah, I'm gonna get a funnel. I don't like that. So I got the reservoir full. I'm gonna hop in the car and pump the brakes. Should try to get a little bit of fluid going to the calipers. let's go ahead and get these guys bled out with our new OMT hydraulic brake and pressure bleeder. Bleed your own brakes quickly, easily, and safely. Comes new with pressure. So what we're going to do is put an ample amount of brake fluid in here. Doesn't really matter how much you put, just a good amount, because you can dump it right back in your container when you're done. Something like that. Screw this guy on. Make sure it's tight so we don't have any air leaks, because we do need to pressurize the system. Okay, there's that. I'm going to take this cap that goes there. Take this, that goes there, and this pumper up to about 40 psi. Now the cool thing about this is the reason we put the brake fluid in there, as we crack the bleeders on the calipers and air comes out, fluid automatically runs through this line from the reservoir into that reservoir, keeping everything full. So this truly is just a one-man job now. Whoever designed this, I would like to shake your hand, because bleeding brakes used to be the worst. Now it's easy. Now the bleed sequence on Evo is very, very odd. Passenger rear, driver's side front, driver's rear, passenger front. Every car, man, every car is different. So passenger rear first. Let's grab our little container. Our clean brake fluid is gonna go right back into here. And being that the line is clear, we can see when it's straight fluid and no more air. Now don't forget, Brembos have a front, or not a front, but a inner and an outer bleeder. So you need to do both. All right, you can see in this line right here, some of those little air bubbles. We're just gonna leave the bleeder open until it's straight fluid. Same concept with the clutch. Find your bleeder, crack her open, and let all the fluid flow. We may have to do this again after we go drive the car. I'm not so sure doing this once is going to get all the air out of the system. There might be trapped air in places. But this will at least give us a clutch and brakes. At least a little bit. Well, it's been at least a few hours since we built 40 psi of oil pressure, and there's not a single leak on the thing. Of course, now when we go to fire it up, the oil's gonna get a little bit thinner. That'll make it leak easier. Higher oil pressure, 90, 100 psi at cold start. That'll make it leak more, but so far so good. If there was an obvious leak, it would be leaking. Nice. Unfortunately, the shop did not get our intake manifold done today. It's now past closing time, so that's really the last thing that we need for a first start. Need that manifold back, need our base map, and we should be good. Hope you guys enjoyed. I don't know what's going around these days, man. I was sick like a week and a half ago. Bobby got sick, Jared got sick, and now I'm coming in hot with something else. I got 100 psi of pressure in my freaking head right now. So I will hopefully see you boys tomorrow. I ain't trying to complain, I'm just saying. Something sus is going on right now.